there was way too much devoted to both. It was almost as if this wasn't so much a Star Trek film as an audio-visual art presentation with Trek stars serving as the bumpers. It was caused because the original effects house produced real shit, and so they went massively over budget, having two other special effects studios working day and night to get the film done on time, and there was little time to actually edit it. The director's cut does remove a lot of the problems, but not enough. And it doesn't really solve how the story, for all the depth of the concept, is actually shallow. Kirk's obsession with the Enterprise is a point that's not resolved here, and his conflict with Decker is only really resolved in Decker disappearing at the end. And at over 2 hours in length, it just runs too long, even with the improved editing. Many people like the atmosphere, and I concur, it has a nice atmosphere. The problem is that it's all atmosphere, no real substance. In a way, though, this all worked to Star Trek's advantage. The massive box office returns ensured there was strength for a sequel, but the reaction of the film itself helps Gene Roddenberry get kicked upstairs and out of the way. As much as we may love his work in creating universes, he wasn't a very good writer, and his vision for what Star Trek should be differed from what many had fallen in love with, and what would lead to greater successes to come. Instead, the films were handed over to Harv Bennett. Many feel that, as blasphemous as it may sound, this was precisely what the franchise needed, that it had remained on this same course. What happened in the mid-2000s with the franchise would have happened then, and likely spelled the end of Trek for good. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan would build upon the financial success of the first to help keep the franchise alive until Gene was given another chance to do his Star Trek in TNG.
Alpha 5 that was right. A fair shit. There's Petty Alpha 5.
Petty Alpha 6 exploded 6 weeks. Well, these things do happen, I guess. I'm no geophysicist. I'm just a viewer with an opinion. '82 was an amazing year for the science fiction and fantasy genre. It gave us E.T., it gave us Blade Runner, it gave us John Carpenter's The Thing, it gave us Poltergeist, it gave us Beastmaster, it gave us Tron. And amidst all that arose the sequel to Star Trek: The Motion Picture that would set the standard against which all the other Trek films would be measured. A film that came into that market and still broke a box office record for its opening weekend. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, done by two men who had never done anything with Star Trek before, had managed to somehow recapture the feelings that came from the original series of the camaraderie amongst the crew and the sense of adventure. And it brought back the classic series villain of Khan. Because who better to go against Kirk, a man who had stared down a supercomputer that can destroy planets if it wants to, than the super strong, super intelligent, enraged egotist. Khan, the yin to Kirk's yang, with his own obsession, vengeance. A lot happened to get the second film done. Harv Bennett was brought in after Gene Roddenberry was kicked upstairs, with television science fiction work under his belt, and most importantly, a reputation for maintaining a budget, an obvious problem for the last film. Harv went back and watched all the episodes of the original series at least once to understand it, and it inspired the direction he wanted to take the film. He wanted to acknowledge that the crew had aged by specifically focusing on Kirk turning 50 and being surrounded by cadets. It was also his idea to follow up the space scene, which he felt provided a perfect antagonist in a story that was practically designed for a sequel. With that underway, the biggest challenge was to get Spock into the picture. You see, Nimoy had had a falling out with Paramount and Gene. He really only did the first film to help get his lawsuit against Paramount resolved, and wasn't interested in doing anything more with it. But when Harv approached him about appearing in the next movie and dying, he was excited. A good death scene and a way out of a series he believed was going to be a lot like other film franchises, with each sequel being worse than the last. So Spock was brought back so long as he was allowed to die. Harv had all the pieces in place now except one, which would be crucial to the success of the film. That was writer-director Nicholas Meyer. Nick Meyer sifted through all the previous scripts, lifted all the good stuff that everyone liked, and pushed everything else aside. He didn't approach the film as some popular sequel to get out of the way and move on from. He truly worked to craft a story, and his script was originally considered untouchable. However, word got out that Spock would die, rumored to have been leaked by Gene, who was pretty pissed off at this move, and the fans were irate. In response, Spock's death wasn't removed, it was doubled and shifted. That way, rather than shocking everyone and making them wonder who else could die, a technique that was used successfully in Serenity, it would be a dramatic climax to the film. And to throw everyone off, Spock would likewise die at the beginning of the film, but it'd just begin faking and kind of diffuse the issue until they were ready for it to come around again. There are many themes we're going to be covering throughout this review, and one of the things about looking at a work of art in any medium is spotting details that may or may not be intended to illustrate a point, but can do so nevertheless. Wrath of Khan has many, most notably Moby Dick, which I will refer to soon enough, but also King Lear and Paradise Lost. As we see, all these books occupy space in Khan's small bookshelf, along with the Bible and Dante's Inferno. Paradise Lost, you might recall, was referenced by Khan when Kirk sentenced him, and that there could really be thought of as his first application. Khan and his followers in the space seat had rebelled and tried to take control of a starship. But with this crime, Kirk cast him down from the heavens to his prison. Here we may reign secure, and in my choice, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Anyway, let's get started. After the opening credits, the film announces in the 23rd century. To my knowledge, this is the only Trek film that makes a point of mentioning this to the audience, which is quite a common fixture of science fiction films and offers a quiet comfort that you don't have to really have any real understanding of Star Trek. We'll help you out. So we start to pan across the bridge, and the first thing to note is the change in uniforms. Specifically, we finally have some. There's a look of real professionalism about the crew now that was severely lacking in the original, hereafter referred to as TMP. Some people object to this and the likewise naval emphasis of the film, especially Roddenberry. But if you have naval ranks within a naval hierarchy and are on something called a ship, and that ship has weapons and is even now preparing for the possibility of fighting someone, as the Enterprise crew often did or prepared to do in Star Trek, then objecting to it being portrayed as naval and being a military is at best being facetious and at worst being childish. If you really insist that it isn't the case, fine. Then they need to lose the weapons, and whenever people threaten, just have some woman start hitting a little tambourine. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. So, in the captain's chair we have Kirstie Alley. Fat joke, Scientology joke, etc. We're walking. She is a Vulcan, Savak, and she's being careful to have her ship avoid the neutral zone, which would be a serious breach of the peace of the Klingons who had claimed this vast area of space that could house probably a car and a motorcycle if you parked them close together. However, somehow a ship called the Kobayashi Maru, named after the associate of the famed Kaiser Soze, has managed to get inside the Red Egg of Doom and is calling for assistance, and to rescue them, the Enterprise would have to fly in. So they do, but it's either a trap or really bad timing, because they get ambushed by 3 Klingon ships. The nice bit is that they order raising shields, and we see this graphic of little lights appearing around the ship graphic. It's a good way of getting that point across to the audience, so that later on when we see those dots disappearing, we know what's happening. Of course, we know what's happening right now. A major ass kicking, that's what. A shot is fired and Sulu's console blows up, killing him. There's a stick of dynamite randomly inserted into consoles, you see. It's a little game captains like to play. That's why they don't have their own consoles. More go up, and soon everyone is dead and the bridge is filled with smoke. The irony of all this? There's no smoking sign on the bridge. I'm not joking. At this, we hear the voice of Kirk, who makes an appearance at the front of the ship. To continue the Paradise Lost theme, if Khan is the one to reign in hell, then Kirk, being the one whom we have sought to overthrow, is, yep, God. Shatner ego joke, we're walking. Turns out this is all a simulation for trainees, the Kobayashi Maru scenario. Everyone gets up, though Savak is clearly dejected for a Vulcan. She objects to the test on the grounds that there was no way to win, just like if she was playing for the Detroit Lions. However, Kirk points out that every captain has to be prepared to face a no-win scenario, and the Kobayashi Maru is now established as one of the film's own themes, that of the no-win scenario.
How we deal with that, at least, or how we deal with lions.
As Kirk goes to leave, McCoy asks about putting an experienced crew on board Enterprise, But Kirk remarks that galloping around the galaxy is a job for the young. See, this is Kirk's 50th